All right, Steve, we've already ascertained that you're not a professional gambler in the pure sense of the word, but would you say that you're a professional, in inverted commas, gambler who also does media work, or the other way around?
Yeah, I think I am a punter, really. I mean, I've had Betting Expert for 11 or 12 years now, and personally, some punters, I have got immense admiration for people who only punt, who've got no other source of income. Because if I have a really bad month or two, at least I know that Betting Expert will pay the gas bill and the mortgage without any stress or worry. So I find that I can concentrate better on the punting without worrying about whether the bills have been paid that month. So I don't think I would describe myself as a punter. If people ask, I say I'm a punter, but it's more respectful to say to your friends, well, I'm a sort of blogger, a journalist, a YouTuber, whatever you want to call it. It's nice, and also you pay a bit of income tax. It's a nice way of feeling sort of a more normal person. As you know, Simon, if you describe yourself as a punter, it's sort of your persona non grata, aren't you? It's not really what you say at dinner parties and stuff. You're better off saying you're a PR man or a marketing person or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I love doing it. I mean, with Betting Expert, I've met a lot of people I never would have met. They've got offices in Copenhagen. I've worked with Shane Anderson, obviously, Global Gallop on Twitter, Jackie Brocker, fantastic people. I've met lots of people. If I was 20, I'd go and live in, we'd go and live in Copenhagen because it's absolutely wonderful place and a wonderful company. So I think, coming back to something you said earlier on, for your own sanity, it's good to stay sociable, chatting to new people, meet new people. I mean, I run a football team. I try and exercise. We try and stay so away from betting, because otherwise you can get completely wrapped up in it. I mean, one thing that I do find, and again, I'm full of admiration for people who are totally dedicated to punter. Because if you're sort of single and you haven't got family life and all the rest of it, there's never a cut-off point, is there? The day never ends. I mean, I can imagine you'd be sort of onto the sort of American football at 3 a.m. If you're into that, sort of punting is all you've got. If there isn't a cut-off point, then it's really, really hard to sort of keep a sense of sanity.
You talk about a sense of sanity, so how many hours would you put into it a day?
Well, I get up really early, like your hero, Margaret Thatcher, Simon. I get up at sort of 5:30 every morning, and I really try. I find I work better then. I get up, I'll do 2 hours doing the form, I'll do my Betting Expert stuff, all the YouTube stuff, price up the racing, price up if Swindon or Hove's on, and then I've got the afternoon free to bet, basically, because I think you need to. I'm a complete exchange punter these days, bar one or two things that I can, places that I can get on if I really want to. So I find it easier to be concentrating solely on betting on the exchange with nothing else in the way, sort of thing, in the afternoons.
Okay, then we mentioned earlier that it's very impressive, 10% on your 2 tips a day for a Betting Expert. I mean, how many bets a day would you have for your own personal punting?
Well, with the greyhounds, it'll be slightly different. With the horses, I'll be betting sort of 90% jump racing, and I'll maybe play 2 or 3 races a day. But I do lay things as well. I can't quite get rid of the sort of bookmaker in me that when I think things have shortened up far too much, that I will lay them. But with the dogs, it's slightly different. How many bets a day? With Hove and Swindon, I've got my prices to 100%, and there'll always be discrepancies between what I think things should be and what the market says. The dog racing markets are much less settled and much less correct than horse racing markets. As you know, in the last few minutes of horse racing markets, the prices are near as damn it right. Now, I know that people will say, well, it's far too short, that's far too big, perhaps, but overall, they arrive at the right conclusion. The only people left playing on Betfair are people who have probably stood the test of time. There's very little mug money on there. It's extremely accurate. I mean, I read a lot of blogs and a lot of bookmakers you've interviewed, and on Twitter especially, and they say, oh, we've had another shocking day at Hexham, 4 favourites of 1 and 2 second favourites. Well, that's what's going to happen. It's not favourite because the Sporting Life went 5-2, and so they all go up 5-2, and maybe it was because Lester Piggott was riding. It's 5-2 because all the brains in the world have decided it's got a 29% chance of winning, and that is what chance it's got. If you've laid 3-1, you are going to lose. Now, if you've come in and laid 7-4 before it drifted out, then you'll be fine. But most of these sort of on-course bookmakers now, they've all laid 3-1. because they're desperate, got to lay a favourite, and it's not profitable, I mean, there isn't enough money on course now to make, we'll come on to that later, very hard to make it pay now because the money's moved away onto the exchange. So, how many bets will I have? With the greyhounds, I'll probably play on every single Hove race or every single Swindon race, one way or another. I'll look to lay something a place or be against this, back that, just related purely to prices. I'm really try as I get older not to fancy things, but to get my prices right, because that's the key to surviving, really.
Okay, now you've mentioned that you do most of your betting on the exchange. Is that because, like everybody else that's successful, you've lost all your accounts, or is it because you get that extra bit of value?
Mainly, it's hard to get accounts. I know people who still can get on, but it has got a lot harder. I just find Betfair's a lot easier. From a discipline point of view, you can control your staking completely. You're not sort of giving around orders to people and you're getting it returned in the last minute. You don't know whether you've got on, have they missed the price? I just find the whole thing much more... That being said, the recent sort of affordability checks are going to make life extremely difficult. I'm sure a lot of people who watch your interviews and stuff, Simon, have been hit by these affordability things where you're basically getting asked how much do you earn a month, and you're getting severely restricted on what you're able to deposit or lose per month in theory. So there's going to be massive changes coming down with Betfair. I mean, I've bet with Betfair since day one, since they started. And so they know the overall profitability or whatever of the account and what size I bet in and all the rest of it. And I've had regular contact with them recently because they want to limit your stakes right down in relation to your actual income, unrelated to how your betting's gone over the last 20 years. So that is a massive change. I mean, if and when that angle closes, it's going to be very, very difficult, I think, for a lot of people who, like me, I say I've got a job, but punting is probably a bigger part of what I'd hope to be my earnings every year. And if that stops, then you have to have a rethink. It's very difficult.
You may not want to say this, but do you have any accounts where you're tolerated as a mark?
No. I mean, I really wish I did. I mean, my friend Steve Freeth works for Bet365, and Steve, lovely guy, I've known him since we were kids, really. And we worked together in our first job at SAS. And I've always hoped that Steve, who's been at Bet365, is probably the richest man in Aston Villa where he lives. It's Birmingham, really. I was hoping he would get me an account at Bet365 and look after me, but I don't think he's quite got the say. No, I mean, I have had accounts in the past, but it's just, I don't. One of the things I actually don't like is punters moaning about not getting on, because we all know that. We all knew that when we were 20, didn't we? The bookmakers are not... A bookmaker said to me when I was a punter at the Dogs before I became a bookmaker, "We're not here for you, son." And they're not. Yeah, they're there for themselves. And you have got to understand that. I wouldn't... at the Dogs, I bet some hot people, but I don't want to play people who I think are a lot better than me in big size. Why should you? I have no... it's pointless. It's like sailors moaning about the sea, punters moaning about getting on. You can't do anything about it. It was forever thus.
Now, anybody watching this so far, and it's about 25 minutes, it's very easy. You win money back in horses and dogs. Now, the reality is that I imagine the very best people have bad losing runs. Which would be the worst? Can you remember one that you've experienced that was almost brought you to the edge?
I mean, when I was a bookmaker and younger in my 20s, I didn't have any... I mean, I had to go and stand up in court to get your licence. The thing I thought would hold me back is I had no money. I mean, I had a few £1,000s. I'm not from a wealthy family or anything like that, so I stood up in court. I'd got... What money I had was from punting, from betting, and they gave me a licence. So I walked on at the Dogs my first night when I had a partner who was already there, so I started with a few £1,000s basically. So, but... You could, in those days, it was slightly different. You could take money. But my worst sort of time, I think there was a spell during the Reading Masters was the big thing every year. And I think there was a terrible run of favourites winning sort of all the, and you did used to stay. There's no Betfair. So you're playing, I went up first with the prices. They were my prices. If they want to be on at 6-4, they can be on. And say by this time, a few years on, I had a 20 gram float, and I think I was losing sort of 17 grand. And we came to the mast, so you're looking, you're thinking we're in trouble here. We've got there's no sort of, didn't own a property, rented a property, there's nothing to fall back on. And I think what actually happened was that there was an odds-on favourite, and I bet anti-post on the Masters, who I think was called Blue Merlin, and he ended up, I think he was 7-4 on in the final, and he got beat. Now, had he won, I think it would have been extremely difficult for me to carry on, because the anti-post book was absolutely horrendous. As it happened, the winner, a dog called Night Trooper, it was a really good dog. Was a very good result. So there's numerous points along the way where, you know, your float is extremely low. When I was in my 20s, and you know, there has been huge bumps in the road and disasters, and you know, bookmakers have gone bust and you've fallen out. But you know, all these things that everyone else has been through. It's a tough game. Bookmaking is a very tough game, especially on course. It's extreme. I only had nearly, probably best part of 20 years at Reading and Oxford until they closed. And there were lots of times where you're in and out of money. There's times where you're flying as well. I think you're better off talking about the times when you're struggling personally. Nobody wants to hear about the nice holiday you had in Thailand. They'd sooner hear about you sort of, you know, scrambling around the back of Aldi trying to get the value baked beans, wouldn't they?
But you've got the added pressure because you also tip your horses up. You get paid to tip horses up to people that read bettingexpert.com.
Yeah.
So have you ever had a terrible losing run on there where you've sort of started to doubt your abilities?
Well, there have been losing runs. I mean, we do a daily betting expert nap, which tends to be shorter price ones, so they're usually all right. They usually bump into a winner there. But the value ones, which are sort of usually double figure prices, generally speaking, you can have runs where you don't tip a winner for a month. And of course, we're on YouTube every day now with the daily video. And some of the troll comments are absolutely fantastic. I mean, if you ever made the mistake of reading them, you know, you'd never get out of bed in the morning. But you know, I've got a thick skin really. There's been plenty of bumps in the road, and it brushes off me really.
And have you got a strategy for ever bouncing back, like taking a break or going for a run or something?
Well, no,
like
I think that's in the morning, because I get up so early. We go for an hour's walk every day. With some lockdown, we were talking off camera about this, but lockdown was a sort of wonderful time of freedom, wasn't it? You had so much time. I wasn't worried about getting back for the 11:07 at Swindon when there was no dogs and no racing. But after about 2 weeks, the novelty wore off, and I suddenly thought, well, hang on a minute. If this goes on for 6 months, you know, the lights are going to be going out. But no, I think going for a walk every morning is a really walk for an hour. Do 5,000 steps. Don't look at your phone. I mean, phones are the world's worst thing. I am this is the longest I've gone without looking at my phone for about 10 years. It's they are the world's worst. I mean, you know, especially for punting and stuff. You know, you're going around someone's house and you're trying to watch the 7:27 from Hove when they're serving up the melon and ham. I mean, they are the absolute. What you've got to find cut-off points, I think, where I get up early and start early. I'll come downstairs at 5 o'clock. If there's no night racing, I'll just try not to have a bet, not be interested in it, stay disciplined.